Welcome to Just a Chat. AI intensifies competition and sparks creativity will be the topic of the day. This is the fourth episode in our series on the age of creativity. And as we've been exploring the views of youth at the crossroads and AI on our future, the age of creativity has emerged as sort of the third in this series. And I pondered just what this might mean for Canada. You know, we've been discussing the forces and sources of change as insights to the future. But if they are, is the impact of AI, of youth at the crossroads, of the emergence of creativity, is that impact any different in Canada than on others? For example, the US. And interesting enough, in the course of thinking that through and discussing it with others, people are differentiating creativity and complacency in Canada. And competitiveness. So if AI is in fact increasing competitiveness, is it doing so in the US any differently than in Canada? And the general conclusion from those that have actually been engaged in the formal discussion, and even some research, is Canada tends to be a little more complacent, either because things are a little easier here. We've got a resource-based economy, so we don't need to do quite so much marketing and quite so much selling. But for some reason, creativity is lower, competition is lower. We've got more monopolies, more public service, and that might mean we've also got a lower level of creativity. So my musing led me to these two perspectives. First, in the article that I wrote for the weekend, that AI is indeed transformative. It's triggering not only an increase of access to knowledge, but an increase in access for everybody, meaning both competition and the need for creativity are being anticipated. The second insight was, I cited this in the fact or fiction feature above in the article that noted that Canadians' kindness comes at a price. That kindness is complacency and a little slower in the market. I saw that in Asia, for example, which is highly competitive. When I was in Taiwan, it was generally known that the Americans were very competitive, very aggressive. Canadians were easier going, not quite so not so much hype on the sale. So let's keep this dialogue going about Canadians' relationship with its highly competitive neighbor. The discussion can roam about competitiveness in Canadian society and why we're less competitive, but also what the implications are for the adoption of AI, which is very slow in the uptake in small businesses in Canada. And that would imply creativity is, we got a gap there too. So, Greg, you were making some comments in the preceding of actually using AI for creative purposes. Do you want to share that with us if you're still there?
I think it's a big question as to what is knowledge and who is the purveyor or keeper of the truth in this post-truth world where we have lots of information, a lot of misinformation that's just patently incorrect, and a lot of intentionally directed disinformation, incorrect information, intentionally disseminated to misinform people. So we have this amazing tool that's able to maneuver all that is stored as information. But what is right, what is wrong, I think it depends on the context. Well, making dinner tonight is my wife might say this was dead wrong, but she's probably going to say, hey, you did an okay job. Could be better. If we're talking about a legal brief, it's a completely different context. And if we're basing the correctness of our legal brief based on the existence of legislation and compliance with ethics and the law, that's a completely different context.
Well, okay, this is interesting because it would seem to me that what you're going to consume through your mouth at supper, you should be a real critical thinker as to what is in that recipe. Probably more so than on a legal document where someone, well, anyway, you've got two different fields.
There is the legal doctrine of happy wife, happy life.
So what happens if poison mushrooms are in that recipe and you don't detect it? Who's responsible?
I'm in a world where I take 100% accountability for my complete life experience as a
But
core value. So I am.
the law apparently says that ChatGPT may be held accountable because it fed you that information, and you not engaged in critical thinking were the user. The perpetrator was the source. If that in fact turned out well, if you had an allergy, why wasn't there a warning for that allergy? If there's
I find it remarkable the amount of accountability people are willing to shed
yeah, yeah.
to save their own
I'd,
self.
I'd also, come back to the point that you made. Misinformation. I don't think there's a lot of misinformation out there. I think there's some misinformation, which is why critical thinking is important for youth to learn. In particular, that fire is dangerous. AI can be dangerous. I think they've got to learn and know how to do proper critical thinking, including those in small business that are using it for legal document preparation.
Right. Interesting questions, Barry. I love the way you convene people and you move the conversation along. It's
Well, let's move it along then. I am looking for hands. I see Lorenz is coming in, and I know that Benita's here, and I know Bill's online. Yogi, uh, time passes. The discussion around creativity, the discussion around increasing competition, the discussion around AI in general continues to go on. Peter, you have anything to add here?
Yes, I do, Perry. I was going to say I think there's quite a bit of misinformation on the internet, particularly on the short video tubes, YouTube, TikTok, and so on.
Hmm.
Because an awful lot of these videos are basically promoting some very personal point of view or some personal sell that they're trying to make or whatever. But it often is shrouded in overclaiming things, in my view.
Okay, well, I guess the word more, it's out there. I don't know how many people are actually searching through YouTube and are not alert to whether or not they're getting some political ideology or not. Um, I mean, I'm an experiment. I am a subject of one. I haven't found a lot of misinformation out there, but then it depends on where I'm searching and what I'm searching for. If I'm searching for validation, um, and I already have misinformation, I'm just going to find sources that are reinforcing what is already, I'm already misinformed. Therein lies one of the dilemmas: how to use AI, how to use search engines for that matter, what school to go for your education, what church to belong to, what group what newspaper you read. I mean, this is being human. Is knowledge and the pursuit of knowledge requires some knowledge about how to go about doing it for purposes of reinforcement or purposes of quote learning. And if
All
kids
those
are,
things you've just pointed out too are also a point, in my view, or an aggregate of wanting to be part of belonging,
yeah,
whether
absolutely.
it's a big group or a little group. It's about belonging.
There's your social media dilemma.
Yeah.
Yogi.
Thank you, Barry. I was thinking about this creativity theme here is I think artists, scientists, all of us can explore more ideas more easily with AI than without it. And the reality is that many of us have ideas, the majority of which are actually not very good. If we can dispense with the ones that are not very good very quickly and focus our attention and effort and time on the ones that turn out to have some merit through after some cursory research, I think we've accelerated creativity enormously. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, not only in science or R&D for product development, but also in the arts. I'm expecting great changes, great upheaval in all of these spaces.
Well, I was sharing earlier that, and as we got into whether it is truly creative to take someone else's ingredients, because what AI is giving you is someone else's knowledge, and you are doing the creative process of assembling it to do something unique or original. Is that creative? And we get into the weeds of academic definitions of whether or not that is truly creative. In that, have you really discovered anything where by simply reassembling? Aslam, Batty.
Thank you very much. Um, just a couple of comments from what you said earlier. In terms of kindness versus complacency, I do agree with Randall in terms of accountability, taking personal accountability for
Right.
where I'm at and what I do. But I guess the question is, when you're talking about complacency and you're saying high productivity and we're low productivity, or we need to look at our productivity in Canada, but at what outcome are we looking at it for, and at what cost? Okay, so I don't regard being kind as a complacency issue. Okay, to me, we're building a society where hopefully everyone can thrive. Okay, at a certain level that they're not disadvantaged, and they can feed themselves, and then we can employ them, right? And I think we do that partly through kindness aspect of it, right? I mean, do I want to live in a world where dog eat dog, so to speak? And so to me, I think one of the things when we're discussing is what is the outcome we want for our human society within Canada, okay? Versus how much productivity, how much competition, and so forth that will serve to that end, rather than just comparing. Oh, the U.S. is really competitive. Well, frankly speaking, take a look at their lifestyle. Take a look at the outcomes on their health side and so forth. Okay, do I want to be in that environment?
Well, I mean, you've made an excellent point on what are your values.
Right.
If the values that you have are to consume, to have more than anyone else, then in fact you might find the competitive process, if you're gifted, quite welcome. If, on the other hand, you are disabled, you're unable, you didn't get the education, you were born with a club foot, you might want help along the way. And somehow in a society we have this normal distribution of those that have and those that don't have, and we will always have that unless somehow everybody's got to wear the same outfit and everybody's going to get the same education, whether you like it or not. It's a little naive, it would seem to me, to think that with the extent of individual differences that exist in human beings, that you're ever going to build a society that has just the feature of kindness. You'll have elements of it, but I don't think anyone is believing that every man and every woman and every child and every human being in a society is therefore going to be equal and will all be kind to one another. It's a nice thing as a religious position or as a politic, but it's impractical in practice. So how?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't disagree that it's impractical.
Okay.
When you're saying it from a everybody being equal perspective point of view. Okay, I wasn't relating it that everybody. I mean, I'm not talking about a communist system where everybody gets everything, so to speak, on an equal basis. Okay,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is that in a very competitive society, or due to productiveness or whatever, where the rich get richer, 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 and the poor get poorer, 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 type of thing. I mean, is that what we want? I mean, there's got to be a certain level.
Do you know of societies where the poor are getting poorer?
Well, I mean, just take a look at the income gap in the U.S. It's going
But
higher.
the income levels have risen all across the board. The wealthy have raised faster, but the income levels across the board have risen.
True, but then what that income level buys at the lower end, the cost has risen as well. So in terms of a life perspective point of view, the lower end hasn't gained anything.
And yet the immigration and appetite for people to immigrate to the US continues to be one of the highest in the world. Why would that be? They think they're going to get something.
Sure.
I think that the laws of least effort are not going to apply. That if they apply work, if they put in a hard day's work, they're going to get rewards back. They're not going to give it to the state. They're not going to give it to away. It will be theirs to consume, to have a lifestyle of consumption. I think therein lies one of the issues is it's not competition per se, it's this appetite of consumption that seems to be the issue between the haves and the have-not. The have-nots want to have more.
Exactly, yeah.
They want to have what the wealthy have got.
Right.
And the
So
wealthy will say, then work harder.
well, I mean, that's questionable to some degree, okay? But yeah, no, I do agree that the people immigrate to make a better life for themselves. I'm not disagreeing there, right? You know, and but I guess, you know,
But Aslam, I think the point that you made, and I think it's a good one, is so I observed in Taiwan competition. The Americans were much more competitive in a variety of ways. I mean, socially, they were in and they were out. Canadians wanted to build a relationship. The Chinese will give you gifts in advance. They will give you low cost to start. They will try and build a relationship long term. You might say they are kinder than the Americans that were, you might say, greedy. You might say they're more market oriented. They'll give you a smile, they'll give you a handshake, they'll give you a low price, but will they give you quality and long term relationship? There are differences, clearly. And I felt that Canada could be more competitive when I
right.
visited Taiwan.
Yeah, so I'm not disagreeing with that. What I'm saying is that if you take a look at the social indicators, even with all the countries around the world, okay? If you
Yeah,
take a look at the 10 top countries that are flourishing from a humanistic perspective point of view, right? Where people feel that they're doing fine, so to speak,
yeah,
right? Canada's number 10 and the US doesn't even come up anywhere
sure,
close.
sure.
Okay,
Fully understood. Yeah,
so
which reinforces the American society as a society is more competitive. That doesn't mean it's happier. I mean,
right,
Mark Anilsky, who does work on the happiness index, I think points to Finland, a number of northern countries, and Canada's got a reasonably high happiness index relative to the U.S. And I think it has to do with the Blue Jays, personally. And I hope this is sustained. And this waiting 23 years just reinforces the point I've made numerous times. Canadians are too patient. We don't want to wait 23 years any longer. Anyway, I'm drinking red wine today, guys. So this one will not be recorded either.
There is something about happiness and diversity that we're skating around. Those northern countries aren't nearly as diverse as Canada. And they have much more uniform national
yeah.
commonality.
Well,
So
and those countries,
something to
Greg,
explore.
those countries, Greg, are complaining. I mean, Sweden has had a major influx of immigration, and it's resulted in some discomfort. It takes a while for people who are I'm an immigrant. Islam, I presume you've most of us probably online have immigrated. That first generation of immigrants is typically more competitive than the second generation because we're starting from scratch.
100%.
And we don't have a network of grandparents or communities that know who we are. We've got to make our marks. So as strangers, we tend to want to belong. I think that point was made earlier. And belonging means getting noticed for doing something kind or something productive or something. High batting average, a lot of goals scored. Jeff Kramer. I always like what you have to share. How's this stir your thinking?
I think that now is a great time, like for people with ideas to do something amazing, and I'm hoping to transform some of my ideas into amazing things. But never before, I think, has there been a situation where people have had so much access to knowledge. And yes, you do have to filter the information and you know, winnow the wheat from the chaff and all that sort of stuff. But even non-technical people, if they know how to ask the right questions, can actually get decent results from artificial intelligence, and they can do some research and back it up. And what we have then is an ability for really creative people to basically leverage their creativity. And as long as the tools, the internet is relatively inexpensive, as long as artificial intelligence is available, that will be a huge boon, I think, to society. The negative side of that is, how is this going to be used? Like, you know, why is Elon Musk developing Grok? Why are these companies doing what they're doing? A lot of them are working towards artificial general intelligence, and basically it's almost like, you know, the Lord of the Rings, one AI to rule them all. Whoever gets there first wins the prize. And if that's the case, what is the prize? Maybe it's global domination. We don't know. So there's so many unknowns. We're at a point that you know, it's scary. We could progress to become like a Star Trek society where money has no value and people can eat what they want and manufacture what they want. Just this last week, I was at the engineering reunion at the University of Calgary for the 89 to 92 years, graduating years. And, you know, they had, the students have access to all of the milling equipment, the welding equipment, the rapid prototyping machines, and even metal rapid prototyping. And it's essentially available to them for free. As long as they are willing to do the safety checks and learn how to be safe around the equipment. This is amazing. I wish that I would have had that access to that when I was going through school. But they're doing amazing things. They're able to, you know, print circuit boards. Like there are circuit board printers that they can use, and just incredible the technology that's available today. You know, if there are a select few that get access to that, but I think in the future everybody can have access to that, and it'll be a case of, you know, write me a program that does this and develop a circuit that does this, and eventually, you know, you can build all this stuff in your garage. It's incredible, the potential. But at the same time, you know, what caused the French Revolution? You know, was this disparity in the wealthy and the poor. If we don't play our cards right, we might be looking at that situation again. So my 2 bits.
No, I mean, that certainly is an indication that we as a society, there's a dynamism underway, and that dynamism has been stirred by competition, and AI is contributing. Now, with that, we're seeing more and more and more. Are we seeing more kindness? Are we simply seeing more consumption? Are we seeing increased competition for kindness? I mean, Aslam, you were using kindness as a value. As a value, there's some of it and less of it. Is a society richer because it's kinder? And I don't mean richer in terms of material wealth, but I think that's a point you're getting at. Is we could also have competition for kindness. Benita, if you're there, I know you got your hand up. Yeah.
Thank you. Just a thought, we have a lot of ideas. Ideas are under development. Perhaps AI tools can help us refine those ideas. Right now is the perfect time for anybody who is a member of the Conservative Party of Canada to compose resolutions on any topic. Because right now, the planning is underway for the Conservative Party of Canada AGM in Calgary at the end of January. So in my case, for example, I serve on the Electoral District Association for CPC MP Arnold Beerson. And I'm willing to, our EDA can submit up to 5 resolutions, and we meet Wednesday next week. So
why don't you use AI to create 5 resolutions that you think will be popular?
Well, and that's why I'm here, because I appreciate the ideas that come out of this group, the suggestions that are here about making the world a better place. I can run it through my EDA, because right now the EDA only has 2 resolutions composed, almost ready to submit. We're refining them. But on Wednesday of next week, we could have up to 5 finished. So I'd like to open that up to anybody here who wants to submit a resolution idea. And what can happen is when the CPC adopts the resolution at that AGM in Calgary at the end of January, when the CPC makes federal government, those resolutions that we create right now can become Canadian federal law. So Anyway, I'm just putting that invitation out there in case you're interested.
Okay, and I'll share with others that whether it be UCP or NDP or Liberals, anyone can knock on the door, anyone can show up at the webinars that UCP and Benita has shown up. Good on her. But
I'm referring to the CPC right now, though. I'm referring to federal. Yeah.
yeah, whatever. I mean, my point being, we're supposedly politically agnostic, and in that regard, anybody can do anything that they particularly feel meets their interest. A few years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when the Alberta government had its last election, I asked ChatGPT to help me form 10 questions to be posed to the network, and they were pretty rock solid in terms of assessing the merit of candidates. I did see anyway. Yeah, AI can be used for all sorts of purposes, and so can this network. So if anybody wants to help Benita, let her know or send me a note, and I can connect you to Benita, or she may put her email address into the chat line. But I was thinking, Aslam, on this point of kindness, that you could actually have increased competitiveness for kindness. Who's the kindest? What country is the kindest? What economy? I mean, if I am running a business, does that necessarily mean I'm not, that kindness doesn't fit? I can think of several small businesses that I know would rate very high in terms of their treatment of customers, and I can think of others that would rate very low. So would their profitability. So kindness may have merit in a capitalistic society, which is highly competitive. I think of my grandson, by the way, and I've told this story before. My grandson's in triathlon. He's very kind. He has an extraordinary EQ. So he's in the triathlon. It's a competitive event. For the first time in his life, he's competing and he's running. And he's passing his friends. And what is he doing? He's stopping to have a chat with them along the way because he thinks that's the kind thing to do. And it's not very nice because he wouldn't feel good if people were passing him in a running race. So he spends time chatting with them. Anyway, it's relative to your culture. It's relative to the nature of your business. If it's highly competitive, you might find that kindness ranks lower. On the other hand, that might may be your principal differentiator is to fix your waiting lists or waiting times, to send notes out to people on their birthday, to send out more Valentine cards. Aslam, you got your hand up.
And just a quick, about immigration, and people are looking to have a better life and so forth. It's true, but we also actually snatch, if you wish, productive people from other countries. Okay, and we do it on purpose, right? And when I remember in the 90s when we went and sent a plane to South Africa to bring a plane load of doctors from South Africa. And we were easily able to do that. And we brought them here so we could put them in rural Alberta and so forth, and I'm sure you all know that there's a fair number of South African doctors in rural Alberta in the 90s and the early 2010s, right? Well, I got a call from the South African embassy and they were really upset. They had educated these people, put them through, and here we were trying to do one doctor per 600 people. And there, they had one doctor for 3,000 people and so forth, and I had the audacity to send a plane to go and get a plane full here. It was just part of my job, right? But I guess those are the conflicting things, at what scale do we do that? I appreciate people want to have a better life and then they come over, but we also go and take people, a classic example was there was a really good cancer doctor in Nigeria that we wanted to hire for the Alberta Cancer Board. So we approached him and he said, you know what, I would love to come, except that I serve 4 million people and I'm the only cancer doctor and I'm not coming. So anyway, just those are the conflicting things in my head,
Well, those conflicts, the public personal clash of interests, we have to live with it. It's from birth to death. is the conflict between what is called for as a social being and what might be in our own personal interests. Bill?
Yeah, interesting take on that. Taking people from other country. I don't think we go over there and kidnap them and bring them to Canada.
Right.
I think that turn of the phrase is not accurate. What we do is we have a more superior lifestyle and personal ability to for people to come over here, that they live better doing the work that they want. And it is a competition between countries for sure. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is who's offering the better return on the investment of the knowledge and skill and talent, and the best, those countries that offer the most will get the most. And that's the success of the United States, and and Canada as well. So, if South Africa wants to keep their doctors, they need to work harder in promoting the doctors staying. And yes, I very much appreciate the individual who has a different motive, absolutely different motive of social grace and support, that wants to stay there and make his own environment better, and kudos to those. But I won't demean those that seek to move their family to a place where they can prosper. I don't think we demonize the latter necessarily over the kudos to the former. Thanks.
Bill,
Yeah.
there's some research on the migration and immigration to and from the United States. The number of people, which is really a poor measure of people moving from Canada to the US, is much higher than the number moving from US to Canada. And the proportions are clearly way out of range. But what's very interesting is that people moving from the US to Canada are better educated than people moving from Canada to the US, implying that for some reason, the higher the degree of education you have, the more attractive Canada appears. And that is interesting. And I'm a case in point, and I could explain probably why. I have a reasonably good education, a reasonably high education. I came to Canada because it's kinder. It is not resorting to violence in the resolution of conflicts. It is not. It is a place where hard work really results in being noticed. You can work hard in the U.S., but if you don't have the right family or the right college degree, you may find yourself bypassed. Canada is more of a place for pioneers, for people who have energy and new ideas. And it's not who you know, it's what you do. There are many things about Canada that make it more attractive. And I think the better educated in the States saw that and see that. I'll leave it at that, in that Trump is not with us today.
But I think, Bill's point is a good one, in the sense that, people are seeking a better living standards and coming here and so forth. So we're really not coaching them, I mean, I guess we can agree to disagree on that, because we actually went out there and sought those people and brought them here, okay? We also had the option of increasing enrollment for medical schools here in Alberta, okay? And we didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, and the government, or the universities could increase their enrollment. The universities couldn't, but the government wouldn't increase the enrollment. Oh no, ask them. They're already well educated and they're already practicing. Just go get them from there. We don't have to go through paying for 6 years of education for them. So that's the conflicting side in my head.
Well, I could go through a litany, and Bill, when we do the sovereignty session in Victoria on December 4th, maybe we should add a paragraph or two of Canada, an independent nation, and its value. I'm not sure Canadians appreciate what Canada is. I'm not sure Canadians can define what Canada is, as well as Americans can with their USA, USA and their flag and their defense system, and they think their health system is better. US is really good at marketing. Canada is a little less bravado. Maybe that's a good feature. I don't know. We only have men here in the audience today. Where's Benita? She's back. Go ahead, Greg.
Just real quick, Perry, we're talking about what might getting a syntax for defining what it is to be Canadian. And about 4 times in the last 15 minutes, Perry, you've used the word kind and kindness as a way to think about that. I'm just wondering, maybe just open another dimension of conversation, what the people around the table think when they hear Perry use those words to describe us as Canadians. Is it, I think there's something more than just the word kind.
I mean,
That's a good start. I'm just wondering what shows up for others when they hear Perry talk about Canadians being kind,
well, I mean, like,
if anything.
there are many more features than simply kindness, so they're also cold.
Physically and emotionally.
Right? No, physically.
But I'm just wondering, I think there's more to that, but I don't want to bias what other people might be thinking with my thoughts on that.
Well, you know, I've often used this and made this point humorously that Canada as a location is cold. It may be the best defense system in the world for that reason, but it hasn't affected immigration. And so when you look at the fact that it's colder here than it is in the US, and there are people still willing to accept the cold in order to come in, there's something about Canada that people choose that can compete with the weather. And it's interesting to think about that, because most people say they don't want to live in a cold climate, and yet they'll choose Canada. Afrikaners in particular.
So why is that, people?
Well, yeah, I'll let others respond.
Yeah, I just like to see.
As an immigrant, I have an edge on you.
Yogi, I can't follow the chat, but I bet you have something to say.
Go ahead, Peter.
Okay, thanks. I was just going to amplify a bit on the kindness issue. First off, when we were talking about retail, I think that there's 2 kinds of kindness in a sense. There's the kind of, facade of how are you, how's your day,
Right.
that sort of small talk. And then there's the sort of mom and pop shop that you might use in your local community. And you carry on a conversation with the proprietor, and you talk about family, and you talk about the weather, and not the weather, but more things of substance. I think there's those sort of different kinds of kindness you get when you deal with somebody at the cash register or in a retail operation. And then the broader context of kindness has been the subject of this conversation as well. And I don't have anything specific to add to that area at the moment, but in the area of, I think, the retail side of things, which is where we started off here on kindness, I think there's 2 kinds. There's the sort of the small talk and the serious kindness that you come back to that shop because you know the people, you have a good feeling, and they know you.
I'm going to pick up on something Kevin's just raised, and you triggered it, Peter, as have a number of others. Is Canada kinder because it offers from the government healthcare, education, a lot of free public service thing? Is Canada kinder because at the national level, we offer all of these things and processes to people? Does that make this nation kinder?
No.
Or are we simply communicating short-term kindness for long-term pain? And that is, somebody's going to have to pay the price sooner or later for the debt that gets accumulated, and being kind today, but no responsibility for those tomorrow. Is that kind?
No.
No, it's not. But there are people that will argue that Canada is kinder because it has national health care.
I disagree.
Well, so do I.
So no, I
yeah.
would suggest that the kindness is not something that one explores as just some, sort of
Giveaway.
Christian value of being kind to your neighbors. I think kindness is something that has intangible value, but value nevertheless. And if we were to work towards developing a culture of a culture that includes kindness. And I'm not trying to get in touch with my old hippie self here. I'm thinking in terms of the actual value of a civilization that is founded not just in kindness, but in empathy and all of those values, not because they fit the DEI requirements and this and that, but because at the end of the day they promote a sustainable civilization. And I think if you look at history over the last, I don't know, a few hundred years, I think it would be fair to suggest, and I think about people like Noah Hariri, for example, and some of his thought process, and how the evolution of education and knowledge and whatnot, and more economic equity creates societies that are more just and more kind, and it's not, obviously I'm simplifying the process, but nevertheless there are certain drivers, I believe, in terms of the evolution of civilization that ultimately promote things that are beneficial to the long-term sustainability of a civilization. And this speaks a little bit to the Star Trek idea as well.
But doesn't it also speak to the cultures that get shaped by religion? Isn't the phrase "do unto others as you would have them do unto you" relevant to this discussion?
Well, I think it is, but I think I would respectfully suggest that perhaps religion was initially a mechanism that had to come in to help kind of get an uneducated mass of people to some level of social organization, which would include, while the religion wasn't necessarily founded on the basis of economic development, having large controlled societies promotes civilization, which ultimately promotes control, which ultimately promotes economic development. So really, and in summary, I would perhaps suggest maybe religion was one step in the process of humanity evolving to a post-religion civilization.
Yeah, and some have argued that we went too fast, we went too far, and we got it wrong. That the pathway
Perhaps.
to control was not the intention of those who brought forth phrases like "do unto others as you would have them unto you," but was more about how individuals should behave with one another, with very little regard to capitalism and other ideas that were formulated later, and certainly control. I mean, when religion became a source of control, when proselytizing and the conquests to promote the religion, clearly the founders did not have that in mind. Yogi? You got your hand up.
Sorry,
Yogi.
I was distracted. The
Ah.
I'm fascinated by the number of times that you've used the word kindness. We certainly could use huge amounts of more kindness in our rather divisive society at this point. It would be exciting that AI somehow made that happen, but I'm struggling to see the relationship between more kindness and AI.
Well, I mean, it can be empathetic. It depends on the prompter. AI doesn't have an emotional frame, a frame of reference. That frame of reference is really generated by the perpetrator, which is the curator of the question. It can be very empathetic. So I'm not going to blame AI for whether or not it's kind or not kind. It's the people using it, whether they use it for kind purposes or not. Benita?
I just want to give the heads up that sometimes kindness is perceived as gullibility. And the benefits of living in Canada for some new immigrants, including the healthcare programs we have here, there are some people, they take advantage of it. They love our kindness and they take full advantage of it and then they abuse it. And they come from a culture where they don't realize they too need to contribute. They come from a culture where they're just here to take. And a prime example of culture um, in a culture conflict is the election signs in Calgary for certain candidates being abused by immigrants. And so we have witnesses stating certain election signs were just ripped to pieces by immigrants. We just didn't get the photos. So my preference would be Canada is not known for its kindness. My preference is Canada is known for fairness and being a land of opportunity. And I feel we are far from that because right now our current laws and the current ways that laws in Canada are being enforced, from my perspective, it's not good. This is a horrible land right now in many ways, and I'd like to see a change.
Okay, and I know you're putting your time and your effort into trying to make a difference and do something meaningful in that direction. Ken, you are a AI agent. We've introduced the topic of competitiveness as a driver of creativity. Is there anything you want to add here?
No, I came in, Perry, I came a little late, but because I thought this was a great topic to discuss, and I like what the last speaker, I agree with her statement in regards to AI. Okay, in the sense that let's look at it. There is a mindset, okay? And we're talking about artificial intelligence. We're talking about, I didn't get too much of the topic. I'm talking about, we discussed things about immigrants, okay? And then the last speaker mentioned about how about what happened in the election in Calgary, the mayor election in Calgary. I'm trying to figure out how that statement, which I agree with, aligned with this topic of AI, AI and the benefits or about the immigration of it. Yes, I am an immigrant. I came to this country, as you know, to study petroleum engineering because Alberta had a faculty of engineering, and I came from Trinidad. Which the economy in Trinidad, which is close to Venezuela, is still petroleum, and I work in the petroleum industry after high school. So I came to Alberta, and I ended up into computers after. And as an immigrant, I found it very innovative. I found when I worked in the industry, and Yogi was here, and I worked in the industry in technology, it was, I will say, very, very kind. I will say, okay? And I work in the States also, United States. And it all depends on no matter what it is, it all depends on the people you meet. Okay, the people you associate with. If you associate with certain people, it's kind of
Okay. This is a point that's just been made by Randall as well.
yeah,
It's the user of AI. AI is a tool. How
yeah,
you use it, whether you use it for empathy, whether you use it for competition, whether you use it for creative purposes, whether you use it for play, or it's what Canadians will use it for. Whether small businesses will use it to improve their administrative processes or improve customer service, whether they're driven by the profit motive or driven by more customers, or whether the two fit. It's not AI that's the issue here. The issue is, how are Canadians going to use AI?
Canadians in the sense, okay, uh, depends on the background, depends on the thinking preferences, depends on the mindset, depends on the academic background. The use of artificial generative AI.
Okay, so you're a teacher.
Yeah.
You see students. You play some role as a leader in their lives. You play a role as a catalyst.
Yeah.
When you talk about AI and you talk about the students and their aspirations, do you talk about AI and their employment? You talked about AI and their mental health? Do you talk about AI as a instrument for better cooking?
Correct.
How are the students looking at AI and the future of Canada, or their own future? Because we dealt with this at the Crossroads for Youth.
The students that I teach look at AI as an opportunity to get a job,
Right.
as an opportunity to stay in this country. I'm talking about the immigrant students who I teach.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, and
The others.
that's what we heard with youth at the Crossroads. Is
Yeah.
not, you can't paint everybody into that
Correct. Okay.
picture.
Yeah, and I'm saying there are other students who look at AI as a way of generating a business.
Right.
Okay, there's different. It all depends on their situation. Okay.
So when we were looking at that U.S. versus Canada, that comparison, U.S. is very business minded, very entrepreneurial,
100%.
very acquisitive in terms of acquiring. One might say, driven by consumerism or by having. Canadians less so.
Correct. I would agree with that.
So
Okay.
AI is more likely to be used for increasing competition, which is where I got it from. I mean, most of the material that I was reading is
Yeah.
AI is being used by businesses and by many people to increase their awareness for purposes of profit or a better meal. A lot of people might even be using it for writing love letters, but I don't know whether that's the case or not. But I'm
Well,
not sure how many are using it to promote kindness. They might be using it for, well, I have used it in caretaking. In Japan, they're using it for caretaking. So, you're going to use it because needs and demands drive motive, which drives your behavior.
correct.
And if your culture is in need of a better economy, AI can help.
Correct.
If your children are in need of a better education, AI can help. But it's up to you to decide how you want to use it. Go ahead, Greg.
Just want to open it up to the group again. Randall mentioned moral compass. What determines how people behave? Does anyone have an answer to that?
What was the question again?
What determines how an individual behaves?
Well, I mean, you're talking about what they've learned and also what their motivation is and what the incentives are. I mean, behavior equals incentive times habit times motivation. What are you getting at?
Getting at values as standards of behavior.
That's one of them.
Depending on what my values are, would determine how I use artificial intelligence. If I think it's completely fair to win as much as we can, then we're going to use AI to maximize profits in a corporate setting. If I think if my values are to take care of my fellow man, I'm going to apply the same technology to build a more equitable world, or to make sure that everyone has at least enough. So that idea of values as standards of behavior, and I think what we're skating around is what defines Canadian society. And if you recall back when Harper was leaving office, he started talking about Canadian values. We want people when they enter the country to sign up and understand what our values are so that they behave. Values drive behavior, in my opinion. You can bring in other things, but fundamentally, your lived experience informs everything informs your values, and your values underpin your behavior.
In this book, The Coming Wave, Mustafa makes an observation about this tool. This tool is more than a book, more than a recipe, more than a set of values, more than a laws. It's a source for knowing. And in that regard, it can apply to virtually anything, whether it be playing or working or caring or thinking or kinding or legal or accounting. You can use it for anything that relates to the usage of knowledge. And so when you talk about the values, those values would apply to so many different situations that I have to boil it down to what we as, I have to drop the word we, I got to talk about I. What am I going to do with AI? Because to talk about what a nation will do with AI, it's so far removed from the reality of what that tool is so broad. You have to regulate everything if you want to regulate. I think the question that you've asked is almost impossible to answer. Is how will the Bible affect human beings is extremely broad, and how AI will affect human. How is it affecting you? At one moment, you might be using it for choice of toothpaste, for growing gardens, for getting a new career, for planning your next holiday, for running a conference on collaboration. I mean, AI is such a powerful instrument which has so many different applications. You really need to be rather specific in terms of how you're going to use it, which takes you to prompting and knowing yourself. And we dealt with that last week, is if there's any fundamental value that society needs to get at, it's helping people better understand themselves, because they're going to do the prompting and the usage of that tool. They should be learning it in school. They should be learning at home. Government should be well aware of its risks. We're dealing with fire here. We're dealing with knowledge, where everybody has access to how to make a gun, how to make an atomic bomb, to how to
Terry,
make a cookie.
I agree 100%. The use of AI is to help you to understand yourself.
Right.
Okay? And that is a very, very big statement.
Yeah.
A lot of people haven't recognized that. By asking certain questions, you understand your thinking preference, your mindset. Okay? And that's where this generative AI model could help people. Some people don't like it because it provides you with here is a prompt, and there is a response. So it tells you and it provides you with an understanding of yourself.
Exactly.
Okay? Okay? It
And,
provides,
there has been some pilot work, and it's a warning.
yeah.
The cell phone, which young people had access to, has not been used well. AI, if we take notice of how the cell phone got used by youth without instruction, without parental guidance, we can see the importance of learning how to regulate, for young people, the usage of AI in their lives. And that's what I come back to. And if there's any conclusion that came from the youth at the crossroads, or AI, the age of AI, or this creativity session, it continually comes back to, what are you as an individual going to do with AI yourself and with the people you care about? I'm not going to worry too much about the government or the corporations. They'll find their way. But we as individuals are potentially at risk if we don't know ourselves well enough to know how to use AI in light of the fact that corporations and government are going to use it for damn sure. So you better be armed with your own guardrails called your education and your knowing your values. Kevin, are you nodding your head or going to sleep?
Oh, I completely agree. A couple of points that I'd like to make is that while so many of the technological revolutions over the last couple of hundred years have been amazing and have wrought different risks and whatnot, AI is a bit different. AI is I suppose a metaphor that I would use is the biblical tree of knowledge that ejected Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden. Everything else was, was crap. It's AI is now that one big ass huge monster that's going to either eject us from the Garden of Eden or
Bring us
effect
back.
fundamental change. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's almost the point of wrap up, and I've made that observation before, but we keep on coming back to it, is that the exiting of the Garden of Eden was in the pursuit of knowledge. We now have it. Now what? And what are we going to do with it? What are we going to do with that tool? What are you
we're going to rebuild the garden, and I think in terms some of the metaphors, some of the models, suggested and alluded to by in Star Trek in terms of what the future might look like for civilization. But I guess what's important is that there is an opportunity for humanity to either evolve to the next level or to crash and burn. And I'm optimistic. I guess one of the concerns is, or a concern that I have is if we are at a tipping point where some people, because of education, because of economic development and their status and whatnot, are able to embark upon that and really embrace all of the benefits that AI and new technology offers. And then there are those that are not able to, and that I guess go off on a different fork in the road. Is there the possibility that the human race might evolve on two different tracks?
Well, clearly, one of the advances of civilized behavior or of civilizations has been the introduction of a number of institutions, education, governance, healthcare. Many of these things have been introduced as knowledge became acquired and disseminated. Those institutions are at risk. They can be strengthened and become more reflective of the consumer as opposed to the supplier, which takes you to the kindness element, or they can be used to further empower. And therein lies the risks. Are we going to see AI used for furthering the power of those that accumulated during the age of knowledge, or will it be dissipated and assumed by the individual? And the individual with the knowledge they now have versus just the supplier, that we will have a society that is more just in the interests of the individual, not just in the interests of the institution, whether it be doctors or teachers or universities or hospitals. Is the individual going to be the beneficiary of AI, or will it become a source of power, as was the knowledge economy? I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay, I'll make one point. The future cannot be predicted with certainty using rational choices.
Yeah.
Okay, with AI, with generative AI, is that true? There is a statement that Alvin Toffler said The future cannot be predicted with certainty using rational choices.
Right.
Okay?
So the point that we've been making, and it was cited in several editorials now, is the guardrail is yourself.
Yep.
That's what Orwell's message was in 1984, is if AI can be used for purposes that are in the public interest but not in the personal, your guardrail is yourself.
Yep. Yep.
How you use it and how you use it with those and how you educate those around you who you care about. So I'm going to leave it at that. It's over an hour. Interesting. Thank you, Aslam, for your introduction of the word kindness. It came up many times in the course of the discussion as a value shared by most of us. And I think we did get a pretty good treatment of the relevance of AI at a personal and at a governance level. So thank you all for your contributions today.